Okay, so Juju's been out for about a week. She's a really well-designed brawler who has a lot of good stuff in her kit, and she doesn't really feel that overpowered in my opinion. So far, I pushed her up a little bit. I know she's not max rank, but none of my brawlers are, so cut me a little bit of slack here. Anyway, I'm pretty much ready to talk about her. I've done enough pushing to the point where I can form a decent opinion, and I'm not really going to talk too much about, like, bad things, because I really don't have a lot of bad things to say about this brawler. She's pretty solid all around, and this is going to be a bit of a glaze session, if I'm totally honest, but I will talk about her interesting mechanics. I'll talk about my favorite thing about her kit, and then just what I find really interesting. So, anyway, we'll go through it. I'll critique her where I can, and let me know what you think about Juju down in the comments. But anyway, with all that said, let's get started.
Well, bless my bayonets.
All right, so let's kick this yap session off with Juju's main attack. Now, she's a thrower, and if it wasn't for her elemental mechanic, then she wouldn't really be anything to write home about. She'd be a bit of a boring brawler, but she does have it, so we do have to talk about it. You should already know how this works by now. When she's in the grass, she's going to get a range buff. When she's on the water, her attacks are going to apply a 4-second slow. And when she's on the ground, she's going to get a damage buff. But how does this mechanic actually feel to use? In my opinion, I think it's a really good mechanic, and it is very interesting, and it gives her a lot of versatility, but there are a couple of issues, like a couple of pain points that I have with it. They're not major, and they're really just splitting hairs, because like I said earlier, I have a lot to glaze about this brawler and not a lot to nitpick, so I do have to really split hairs when I try to find issues with it. So I'm going to complain about the small things in her kit that I didn't really enjoy, but they're not deal breakers by any means, so just keep that in mind, that I still really like this brawler. I will point out some things that I just, like, had issues with, that's all. All right, first up's going to be Earth, and this is perfectly fine. This is basically just Juju's main attack. When you're not in the grass or on the water, this is what's going to be active pretty much all the time. 90% of the match, you're going to be doing extra damage, and I think it's a very solid one. It's boring, but it works very well. Next up is going to be water, and I need everyone really quickly to recognize that most maps do not have water on them, so this is going to be the most, like, niche one out of the entire bunch. Yes, it's very good, and a 4-second slow is very overpowered, so it's a very good buff, and on maps like Canal Grand and Bridge Too Far, you're going to be able to take full advantage of it, and she's going to be very good on those types of maps. But on maps that don't have any water, the only way you can get access to that buff is by using your gadget, so it's also the most limited of the three, which is probably a good thing, because if it was readily available on every single map, then she would just be stupid overpowered. So I'm perfectly fine with the way it's balanced, but again, I have to, like, find little nitpicks, and I'm gonna, like, complain that, like, her biggest, like, buff is also the most limited one. And now we're on to my least favorite of her three mechanics, and that's gonna be the grass mechanic, the range buff. Now, I don't hate it. It's obviously a very good buff, but if I'm ranking the three, then grass is the worst one in my opinion. And I'm not trying to hate. Obviously, the range buff is very good. It can help her flip bad matchups because it makes her one of the longest range brawlers in the entire game, and it gives her a huge area of control. It's a very good buff. But the thing is that the second you step out of the grass, you lose your buff. And there have been so many times where I've been trying to use that range buff to hit enemies, and just because, like, my brain is wired to strafe back and forth, I step out of the grass, I lose my range buff, and I miss my shot. And I recognize right now that that is a huge skill issue. That's 100% on me. I'm not saying it's an issue with the brawler. It's an issue with me. But, like I said, I like this brawler. She's very good. There's very few things to complain about her, and I really have to split hairs. And this is one thing that really annoyed me about playing the brawler, so I'm pointing it out here. Again, you probably didn't have this problem. You probably don't have the skill issues like I do, but that's one thing that I had an issue with, and I need to tell myself to stop moving when I'm using the range buff when I'm in the grass, and that's a hard thing to do when you're in the middle of a match. So overall, I think Juju's main attack and her elemental mechanic is very solid. Now, obviously, she doesn't do the most damage in the game by any means, but she trades that damage off for flexibility and utility. She's very useful having slows and range buffs all over the place, and her damage isn't even that bad. Like, 2k damage is not that bad when you're a thrower, and you can keep yourself safe. Not the bad way, don't think like that. But anyway, as Juju, you're gonna have a decent amount of damage. You're gonna be able to hide behind walls, and if you step in grass, you can just, like, dominate the entire map, and if there's water, you can slow people down. She's just crazy. The main attack's good, the elemental mechanic is very good, and I'm a big fan of it overall. Just a couple small nitpicks here and there.
Oh, Gregory!
All right, Juju's super is my GOAT. I call it Gregory, but I guess its government name is Gregory, which I think is lame AF. But anyway, Gregory is my GOAT. This super is so good. I cannot emphasize how good this super is enough. For real, I do not know why people tend to ignore this doll so much, but it gets so much value every time I put it on the map. It always exerts pressure, and it always, like, ends up either slowing people a little bit or just picking up entire kills by itself. It's crazy. And it can also 1v1 a Mortis, which I think is pretty funny. I think one thing that makes Gregory so strong is the fact that it's a ranged summon that has a decent amount of HP. Like, Grigri has just a little bit less HP than a Nita Bear, but it doesn't need to chase people around to be able to do damage. It can just get in range, and it's gonna start attacking people, which it does decent damage. So you have a range summon that isn't squishy, and it can do decent damage. Like, all that combined is very solid, and it makes it so, like, it's very annoying to deal with. Also, I've been running numbing needles on Grigri, and it's so good. It allows him to get slows all the time, which means you're going to be able to auto-aim onto enemies that he hits. Plus, it also helps him land a second attack, which is all going to feed into your super, so you can get another Grigri down. Overall, it's just very synergistic, and it's very annoying for people to deal with. So, another reason why he's my GOAT. Like, seriously, I think Juju herself is perfectly fine, but I think Grigri is OP, and if they're going to nerf anything about Juju, they have to look at Grigri first, because this thing is crazy. He's OP, he's my GOAT, and you cannot ignore him when he's on the map. Make sure you keep that in mind when you face up against the Juju. Grigri is OP.
My magic's thicker than gumbo.
So I think it's pretty common knowledge that most of the time, brawlers don't have 2 good star powers and 2 good gadgets. Most of the time, one of those things is going to be really bad, and you would never want to switch over to it. Jackie's rebuild gadget, Belle's grounded star power, and Lou's, I don't know, everything about this brawler sucks. But Juju is not one of these brawlers. I honestly think that both of Juju's gadgets and both of Juju's star powers are very good, and there's definitely an argument to be running any of them at any given time. And I know this is really boring, which is why I put it at the end of the video, but like I said, it's not common for a brawler to have 2 good gadgets and 2 good star powers. This is really uncommon, and I want to glaze it a little bit. No matter how you pick up your Juju and run her, she's going to be viable. There's not like there's a wrong way to go with her, and I got to glaze it, so I'm going to point it out and talk about all this stuff real quick, so bear with me here. All right, for her gadgets, I run Voodoo Child. That's the one that makes it so her next attack is going to have all 3 buffs on it. It's going to do extra damage, it's going to have the extra range, and if you land your attack, it's going to slow someone down for 4 seconds. Now, I prefer this gadget personally because it's nice to have that slow in your kit no matter what map you're running on. You can still apply that 4-second slow 3 to 4 times every single game as long as you're landing your attack. Plus, it also still gives you the ability to hide in grass and do an extra bit of damage while being across the map. Overall, it's just really nice to be able to apply all 3 of those buffs at once, and I think it's very solid. But if you feel like you have good control of the map, regardless of what the situation is, or if the map has water so you can still get your slow here and there, then the Elementalist gadget might be more of your speed. That's the gadget that gives Juju a buff depending on what terrain you're on. If you're on the ground, then she's going to get a shield. If you're in the water, she's going to get a speed buff. And if you're in the grass, you're going to get invisibility. This gadget can be very strong depending on the map you're on because all those buffs can be very useful from time to time. And at the very least, you can always get a shield active on a thrower brawler, which can be very nice in case like somebody gets too close to you or something like that. So at the very least, it gives you a little defensive utility as well. But I do have small nitpicks about this gadget, which is why I haven't actually bought it yet. If I get it out of a box, I might switch to it here and there. But I haven't bought it because you can't take full advantage of it all the time. For example, like I said, not every map has water on it, so you're not going to be able to get the speed buff every single time you use this gadget. So that is a bit of a bummer there. But like I said, the shield is very solid, so that does kind of make up for it a little bit. Another issue I have with this gadget is that invisibility feels like a bit of a wasted mechanic on a brawler like Juju. Like, thrower brawlers don't want to be up close and personal with other enemies, but brawlers that take advantage of invisibility are the opposite. They want to be close to people. So like Leon and Kid are good examples. They need to be up close to do their damage, where Juju wants to stay in a safe place. Now, I'm not saying it's totally wasted. Obviously, there's situations where you can take advantage of it. Something like Knockout to sneak up on people and be able to drop 3 or 4 shots right on top of someone before they even realize it. That can always be good. But for the most part, Juju isn't going to be able to take full advantage of it because she's not going to want to run into people. It's not like you're putting invisibility on like Kenji or Shelly. You're putting invisibility on a thrower. So it's like not the most useful of the 3 mechanics. But like I said, at the very least with this gadget, you can still get a shield and have some defensive utility on a brawler that really doesn't have much more other than slows. All right, now let's move on to Juju's star powers. Now, both of Juju's star powers are centered around buffing up Grigri, and I already said Grigri is my GOAT. He's OP, and of course, if you give him any kind of star power, he's gonna be more OP, so of course, these star powers feel very good. Now, her Numbing Needle star power, I already touched on a little bit. Basically, if Grigri just attacks somebody, it's going to apply a slow to them. This is going to help him land multiple attacks, and it also allows you to auto-aim and pick up kills very easily. Overall, it just makes it easier to keep Grigris on the map, which means you're going to be able to keep the GOAT out there more, and you're going to do a bunch more damage. Grigri's the GOAT. Having him out there as much as possible is what you want to do, so this is very good. However, Juju's other star power is called Guarded Grigri, and what this is going to do is that when Grigri is spawned, he's going to have a decaying shield over him to give him even more HP. This is pretty good because, like I said, Gregory's already pretty tanky to begin with, and then you give him a shield to have more HP on him, so you can use him a bit more aggressively. You can cause him to push people back, or you can use him to body block shots from like Piper or something like that while you are moving in on her. Like I said many times, Gregory is OP, and both of these star powers just add to him. They either give him a slowing effect, or they make him more tanky, and both of those can be very annoying to deal with. Again, real quick, I just want to reiterate that I think the endgame kit for this brawler is very good. They made both star powers and both gadgets very viable. There's definitely an argument to use either or of both sets, and you don't see that very often, so that's why I want to glaze it here, because a lot of the times people get stuck with like gadgets and star powers that they don't want, and if you get one of these out of a star drop, you're not going to feel bad. You can find uses out of it, which is why I want to glaze it here. Alright, so there is my yapping about Juju. Overall, I think she's a solid brawler. I think she's got some interesting mechanics on her main attack, and her super is OP as hell, and her endgame kit is very good, being 2 good gadgets and 2 good star powers. Overall, I really like this brawler, and there's very few things I could really nitpick about her when I really got down to the nitty-gritty of it. Do I think she's OP? Maybe just like a little bit, but I don't think she needs any like crazy nerfs or anything like that. Maybe to Gregory. Maybe to Gregory. But for the most part, in my opinion, she is a pretty balanced brawler. She's got really good matchups, she's got really bad matchups, and she's not going to run away with a game like Mo or Kenji can. But I think that's all I have to say about Juju. She's a solid brawler that I have very little to complain about, but let me know what you think about her down in the comments. And remember, if you enjoyed my yapping, make sure to leave a like on the video, and if you're new, consider dropping a sub as well. But that's going to do it for today. I want to thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.